Hello everyone, Kelei Taylor, and this is video 2 in a series of 3 videos for U.S. Public Law 103-150 that I'm actually just reading out on video that people can listen to and hear. So if you didn't catch the first video, I would recommend going back and catching that and then coming back to this video and finishing off with video 3. As I stated earlier in the other videos, and why these pieces of information is now coming out, why I've decided to do it, is to help everybody understand the truth about what happened so that we can actually resolve it in a great way, creating world peace amongst us. And so I'm going to continue to read these whereas clauses. And then again, as stated before, we're going to get on and actually talk about this with other people regarding all of this information that's being shared now and disseminated on the internet. And I definitely encourage you guys to share this as well. So let's get back to over here. U.S. Public Law 103-150, dated November 23rd, 1993. Whereas without the active support and intervention by the United States diplomatic and military representatives, the insurrection against the government of the Queen Liliuokalani would have failed for lack of popular support and insufficient arms. Whereas on February 1st, 1893, the United States minister raised the American flag and proclaimed Hawaii to be a protectorate of the United States. Whereas the report of a presidentially established investigation conducted by former Congressman James Blunt into the events surrounding insurrection and overthrow of January 17, 1893 concluded that the United States diplomatic and military representatives had abused their authority and were responsible for the change in government. Whereas, as a result of this investigation, the United States minister to Hawaii was recalled from his diplomatic post, and military commander of the United States Armed Forces stationed in Hawaii was disciplined and forced to resign his commission. So, basically they said, okay, we're going to, get these guys out. And these guys did all of this wrongdoing. We're aware of that, but let's continue. Whereas in a message to Congress on December 18, 1893, President Grover Cleveland reported fully and accurately on the illegal acts of the conspirators, described such acts as an act of war committed with the participation of a diplomatic representative of the United States without authority of Congress, and acknowledged that by such acts the government of a peaceful and friendly people were overthrown. So thank you to President Grover Cleveland and who recognized this at that time, but there was going to be a change in presidency. And so with the way that information moved in the past, you guys, you remember how information moves so slowly. Now we don't have to wait. We can just share videos, right? And now we have more of a reach as an influence and being able to share this message peacefully, even though all of this stuff has happened. Which really empowers me to continue to share this message around the world with people. So let's go back here. Whereas President Cleveland further concluded that a substantial wrong has thus been done, which a due regard for our national character. So it's saying, man, us as a country, we need to actually look at ourselves really quickly because this is not cool, right? As well as the rights of the injured people requires we should endeavor to repair, and called for the restoration of the Hawaiian monarchy. So that was back then, okay? But this had continued and continued and continued. Whereas the provisional government protested the provisional government, now the illegal government set up by this minister, right? John L. Stevens. They didn't care even what the president of the United States said at that time, because they were here. They were right in the middle of the ocean, and they didn't have to worry about suddenly having to wait for, other people to come in to help out. Okay. So whereas the provisional government protested President Cleveland's call for a restoration of the monarchy and continued to hold state power and pursue annexation to the United States. Okay. So without the military force, they would have never been able to annexate illegally, right? Because this is not even true. This is the annexation is illegal at this point based on this information to the United States. Whereas a provisional government successfully lobbied the Committee of Foreign Relations of the Senate hereafter referred to in this resolution as the committee. So they organized again. They conducted another false meeting to conduct a new investigation into the events surrounding the overthrow of the monarchy. So they said, you know what, President Glover, we don't care about what you have to say. We're going to just make another false thing so that we can keep on keeping on because we want these islands and we don't care what you say. Whereas the committee and its chairman, Senator John Morgan, conducted hearings in Washington, D.C. from December 27, 1893 through February 26, 1894, in which members of the provisional government, again, the false government, justified and condoned the actions of the United States minister and recommended annexation to Hawaii. Now, that is just amazingly insane and crazy, okay, that they felt that entitlement to what was not theirs, to take it so far as to, because they're representative and citizens of the United States, continue to perpetuate this madness. Whereas, although the provisional government was able to obscure the role of the United States in the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian monarchy, it was unable to rally the support from 2/3 of the Senate needed to ratify a treaty of annexation. So these guys, this false government, right, still wrote out paperwork and sent it to everybody and used military forces out of action up until this point of the United States to make what they wanted to have happen here. Who really agrees in bullying? Okay, this is just funny. I know that a lot of you are gonna like laugh, right, that I said that, but the reality is none of us want to be bullied. You are going and breaking your own constitution of the United States to do something like this. Okay, and that's what was happening 126 years ago. These scam artists and fraudulent people existed to condone this behavior, conspire even against its own country. But what's terrible is that once finding, which you're going to continue to pursue these whereas clauses, what's even more magnanimous, you're hearing this, right? So they didn't even get the vote to annexate, okay? Whereas on July 4th, 1894, the provisional government declared itself to be the Republic of Hawaii. So all they did was just change your name and change your name, all this fraud. Whereas on January 24th, 1895, while in prison, can you imagine being a royal queen in prison? You know, you're beloved because you're the ali'i nui that is helping your people. And yes, you're a monarch and yes, you have part of the kingdom. But what you're doing is you've helped sustain your lands, you know, what's been given to you guys. You've been able to represent the Hawaiian people with such, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you go back to page 1, look at the language in English that we were speaking, Hawaiians, in 1897 and before that. So we were highly educated. We were 90% literate. And concluding all of these visitations, right, in video 1, this is where the U.S. learned about us and we had peaceful treaties set up with them. Okay, and so can you imagine being a royalty forced by force under weapons of mass destruction, right, to now live in your house, basically, right, in Iolani Palace, and by force you were overthrown and to abdicate. So let me read this again. Whereas on January 24th, 1895, while imprisoned in Iolani Palace, Queen Liliuokalani was forced by the representatives of the Republic of Hawaii to officially abdicate her throne. Whereas in 1896, United States President election, William McKinley replaced Grover Cleveland. Whereas on July 7th, 1897, as a consequence of the Spanish-American War, President McKinley signed the New Lands Joint Resolutions that provided for annexation of Hawaii. So President Clinton and President McKinley and your family, I would highly recommend, if you're generationally related to President McKinley, it is part of your kuleana and responsibility to reach out and reconcile this, because you now became a conspirator, okay? Or your family did. Now, here's the beautiful thing about where we are at today, and I'm going to explain this because we'll have a little bit more time. throughout the second video. You wonder why people in Hawaii are sometimes offended and upset with white people or Americans that come from overseas. This is part of the reason why. Okay. And for you guys, for me, I'm never, condone beating up haoles. Okay. When I was growing up, I wasn't in the movement. I was in public school. I've seen this type of behavior. It wasn't for me bullying. I would stand up. Okay. I'm a fighter. Haven't had to do it in a long time. You know, I've saved people. I have medals of honor. Okay. But the reality is there's a way to go out and do it, even without a weapon, even without a gun. And that's what you guys have to come to your senses on learning about, because everybody is in a state of fear because of these types of behavior patterns that's been perpetuated since basically the Vatican. And for you, I'm coming. I am. And so let's go ahead and continue to read it. So basically now you, President McKinley, and your genealogy, your family should come back and reconcile on all of this, because we're in a peaceful state that we can do this with, okay? So whereas the Republic of Hawaii also ceded 1.8 million acres of crown government and public lands of the Kingdom of Hawaii without the consent or compensation to the Native Hawaiian people or the Native people of Hawaii or their sovereign government, whereas the Congress, through the New Lands Resolution, ratified the secession, annexed Hawaii as part of the United States, and vested title to the lands in Hawaii to the United States. Every single title in Hawaii is false. So if you own land here in Hawaii, you might think because you have the deed that you own it. So this is why I have to come out and talk about this with you guys, because you guys don't understand what happened. Now that I come out and I evangelize what happened based on the facts of the own findings of U.S. public law, this is where we can radically, peacefully change and reconcile with it. Okay, so can you imagine if we instantly had 1.8 million acres of land that we can access? Well, I already know what to do. I want to build smart technology, homes and build an ahupua'a system because of what I came back to learn about my people. Okay, so whereas the Congress, through the New Lands Resolution, ratified the secession, annexed Hawaii as part of the United States, and vested title to the lands in Hawaii to the United States. Whereas the New Lands Resolution also specified that treaties existing between Hawaii and foreign nations were to immediately cease and to be replaced by United States treaties with such nations. Whereas the New Lands Resolution effected the transaction between the Republic of Hawaii and the United States government, and whereas the indigenous Hawaiian people never directly relinquished their claims to their inherent sovereignty as a people or over their national lands to the United States, either through their monarchy nor through a plebiscite or referendum. So this page right here just tells you, okay, there was parts of the U.S. government who recognized, and time went past. And then President William McKinley didn't care. And as a matter of fact, I do remember seeing I needed to go back and look for some information, but President McKinley actually, and I'm not mistaken, and the newspapers in the U.S., they really made the Queen to look like somebody she wasn't. And, in this day and age, we're not savages. We're intelligent, high-level, beings that are definitely realizing that there was a lot of this that has happened. And so, yes, we are here today to continue to read through this. So I'm going to take one more 15-minute session to read page 3 and 4. And this is, like a 3-part video playlist. And then we'll start to dissect all of this down, what it means. But, again, definitely make sure you're listening to it repeatedly, because you need to have these facts in place when you can stand upon your own legal foundation. And in addition to that, again, the word is what we evangelize. Our interpretation of it is going to be based on our experience and moving through it, because we cannot speak out of ignorance anymore. That is what the world is moving away from. And the nation of Hawaii is going to bring that level of intellect plus sustainable living and communications to all of you. So don't forget video 3, that's coming up next.